nation's birth. Slaves and indentured servants provided much of the labor and skill that built the new American colonies. For a few generations, freedom for black slaves remained possible, but elusive. By the 1700s, African slavery was well established throughout the colonies. In 1776, the new country that declared all men are created equal was a country that permitted and depended on human bondage. The United States Constitution protected slavery. It left the decision whether to permit slavery or not to each state, and it provided for the return of illegal slaves. There was resistance to the neutrality and immorality of slavery from the beginning, and the American forces really to bring about a change to the U.S. Constitution. By 1885, every northern states had passed laws and abolished slavery at the time. But the invention of college and growing world trade set off the massive expansion of cotton production in the South and dramatically increased the demand for slave labor. In the South, slavery affected every aspect of life. One of the big white families in the deep South owned slaves. Slavery was the foundation of the Southern despite the fact that
yeah. Thanks for sharing that. Yeah, with Lincoln. Yeah, but he only had 40%. Yeah.
Yeah. It's always.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Well, we think that you need more than 40% to win, and you make a big deal about having more than 40%. Lincoln only had 40.
Yeah.
And we had a Civil War. Yeah.
Honestly, these guys are really good at recycling stories. So they just changed the name and said their general said. So I have a pretty thick file now. I call it like double takes file. I've seen that story before. And I look back and I put these stories together. It's starting to be quite an interesting list. But these guys were not above swapping stories like that. Changed the name of the regiment, even the war. You know, what the theater of the war. But these stories been around. So whenever we talk about numbers and times, understand that's the numbers I've read. Different books you see give you different figures on numbers and times. So one of the hardest things to pin down is people ask how many people died at Gettysburg. I don't think we'll ever know. So understand what they decide to write on these monuments is what they do right after the battle was over. Have the same benchmark. But so many men see your list is missing. What happened to them? Well, they didn't know, so they were missing. So they could have just missed roll call. They could have been killed, they could have been captured, they could have run away. But my sense is I don't think too many of these men here ran away. Because you had 2 whole years now, see, to run away. And so all the weaklings, they've gone. All the faint of heart have dropped out too. So what you have left are the tried and true of both fighters, I think, by the time they reach Gettysburg. Now later on when the South lost this battle, I think their desertion rate would increase. But up until this time, they're still doing really well. And so I think most of these guys are probably captured or possibly killed. But numbers are really a fickle thing to pin down. And I was really got kind of surprised to see a lot of people say, well, this guy was shot on the first day. Other records said, no, he shot on the third day. What really blows my mind is that he lost his left arm. Other records says he lost his right arm. I guess it gives you you an idea how bad it was in the hospitals trying to keep track of this stuff. Very, very difficult. Probably the last thing in their mind is having to do that sort of thing. So the numbers are really difficult to win now. I think the biggest mistake people make when they hear about Gettysburg, they hear about 51,000 casualties. I think it's 51,000 killed. So it's killed and wounded and captured. Now, they did start to preserve Gettysburg right away. I find that fantastic, so I have a sense of history. But see, at first, this is one man doing it. His name is David McConney, the local lawyer. And he saw the farmers were tearing down the entrenchments that the soldiers had built up, and he thought, you know, this is history. He thought, what better way to honor the soldiers that fought here than preserving the actual land they fought on? That was his big idea. So he started with the fishhook line by Culp Hill to our right, Cemetery Hill in front of us, a little round top, all at the same time, July 1863. And then the next year, this man bought this, they formed this preservation group. He sold his share of this group. They're called the Gettysburg Battlefield Memorial Association. And they bought more land. In the 1890s, the War Department came along to study the battle. That's when they brought them to Southern lines in the 1890s. Local didn't care about the Southern lines, but they realized you can't study a battle with one army. And then finally in the 1930s, the National Park Service got this land, and they're still buying up land today. They're slowly taking it back the way it looked back then. So it's great that when you run across these stories, you can find these places. Talk about jumping over two stone walls, you can find those walls. If somebody got shot out of a house in town, you can find the house in town. But see, if you look here on the right, you see these cannons. And you see the dirt pads around the cannon. This one was David McConney was trying to save for us to see all those years ago, 162 years ago. So these dirt pads, understand, are not untouched, but they're right where they were all those years ago. Now, the man on your right on horseback is General Oliver Otis Howard. He's known as the one-armed general, the Christian general. So Howard only lost his right arm, the Brewer. He met another general from north who lost the left arm. So Howard's comment was, oh good, now he's back gloves again. You get the right and I'll take the left. So he had a pretty good sense of humor on this. And I found out Howard is a really interesting man too. After the war, he's a troubleshooter for the U.S. Army. And so he sent him out to make peace with Cochise. He said only one white man had ever seen Cochise and lived to tell the tale. He said, I want to meet that guy. He said, did you tell him to meet Cochise? He said, only you and me. All right, you and me. And he made peace with Cochise. But I found out recently, another man in this battle was with him. This guy named Slade, Lieutenant Slade was with him on his staff. And so it turned out Cochise really wanted to make peace, but he didn't trust anybody because some of his family was wiped out after they surrendered. But he trusted Howard. So Howard said, I'm going to tell my man Slade to go tell the people at the post, stop shooting your people anymore. And they said, oh, Cochise is smart. You're a general, he's a lieutenant, you're going to do it. Now listen to him. So Slade is here. He wrote a nice book about what it was like making peace with Cochise. And he's there stuck. Cochise, Howard grown up, like Carly, U.S. Army. Interesting stuff you run across all the time. These guys go around everywhere and all kinds of stuff. Now, the town of Gettysburg is largely intact. The buildings over here have little metal plaques on them. These little guard plaques will say right on there, Civil War Building, July 1863. We've got about 200 buildings from the war still with us today. Now, one of the neat stories down the sideways to our left, I have a story about this woman, Catherine Foster. She had a unique story. She was on the back balcony of her house on day one. And she's watching the battle that started off to her left to the west. All of a sudden, she saw Northern troops rushing past the front of her house. So she ran around to the front to cheer them on. He said, right then, a cannonball blew up right there in the balcony. She just left. Then he said 2 more times during the fighting, cannonball blew up right in the room she just left. So imagine a 3-time boom chugging off right behind her as she left that spot in her own house. She escaped unharmed. But the kicker, the story is what happened next. They said Catherine Foster later moved to Johnstown, Pennsylvania. And she also survived the Johnstown flood. Extraordinary. So one of our visitors made a good point of it using sense. They said, in other words, if she gets up and leaves the room, go with her. See, all kinds of extraordinary little stories make this place come to life. So I just know I had in my mind to see if I could find her grave one time out in Johnstown. One of our guys, an expert in our town cemetery, she said, she's not buried out there, she's buried in our cemetery. So she showed me where it was in like 10 minutes. I would spend a whole day in a fruitless search out in Johnstown. So there's always more things to learn about this battlefield. Now, imagine they also had this man who deserves credit for marking the battlefield. He's a professional historian by the name of Colonel John Batchelor. He's from New Hampshire. They said he was really interested in the Revolutionary War. They could not get the kind of detail looking for from that war. They thought, why don't I study a war that's going on as I'm writing about it? So you didn't see the battle. You got it immediately afterwards. He'd bring these men back on the field and say, show us where you fought, and they would show him. And they would mark out the spot on a map at first, as they began buying up land, they put wooden stakes in the ground, and ultimately these different monuments we see today. So people wonder all the time, how do you know this is a spot? Well, that's how we know. Because this man was here right away sorting it out. And see, he's enough of a pro again to realize you can't just study one army. So they bring these Southern men back on the field, they're still recovering from their wounds before they sent off to prison. They show where they were too. So some of these men did not survive. They already got the details where they're lined up. So it's amazing the details about Gettysburg. So they even have these things you'll see as we travel around, they call them flank markers. The flank is the end of your line. They say our line of battle went from right here to right here. So seeing these little stones, RF and LF, or right, left, or right flank, left flank. I've only seen that in one other battlefield in this country. That was down in Virginia and Chancellorsville. And we found only one regiment to have that. This is pretty special. Marked up that well in that city. So I did say it's not perfect. These guys didn't always agree with it. As soon as they had to settle in court, that's the best marked battlefield they could ever see. Now, as far as losses go, yeah, like I said, they wrote in the money what they do right afterwards. Now, imagine the size of these two big armies. Robert E. Lee's got 75,000 men. The North Commander George Gordon Meade has between 90 and 95,000 men. About 170,000 men here in this battle, 65,000 horses. So see, wherever they were, they're like locusts, just devouring everything edible in their path. So for 2 years now, they've been fighting down south. So Virginia's been devastated by war for 2 whole years. Lee's where we've got to get out of the south. So he's looking at Pennsylvania, which has been untouched by war. So Lee thought if he could slip around the north, down near Fredericksburg, Virginia, get into range of mountains, we'll see up ahead, the South Mountains. They can shoot right past the north and straight for Harrisburg. They can take Harrisburg. They can threaten Washington, D.C., and Baltimore, and Philadelphia. The idea is to get the north to chase them, get them to spread out to protect those major cities. And once they're all spread out and tired, see, Lee can suddenly turn on them in a place yet to be determined and destroy the north bit by bit. So divide and conquer is the game plan. But all of a sudden a spy came along and warned Lee the north is closing in rapidly. So Lee looks at the map and sees Gettysburg has 10 roads converging. That's a lot of roads for a little town. There was a concentration in and around Gettysburg. He told his men not to start a battle while the South was, well, the Southern Army scattered. And the Southern General A.P. Hill started the battle without Lee. Now here on the right, the man on horseback is the Northern General Reynolds, John Reynolds. He's from Lancaster, Pennsylvania. The man in front of him here is General John Buford from Kentucky. You know, Kentucky's one of those in-between states, border states. As we often have brother against brother. So Buford had relatives fighting for the southeast of the road community. A lot of divided families from that war. One of our guys had a good story he found about some group in West Virginia, a little town in West Virginia when the war started. This guy got up in front of his neighbors. He said, we got to do something about this. They're threatening our country, they're threatening our flag, they're threatening our homes and our families. We've got to do something about it. They all said, yes, you're right. He said, go home and get your guns and go off to war. When they reassembled, they thought he was talking about joining the Northern Army. He's talking about joining the Southern Army. They sounded so much alike, they didn't get what he was saying. And near Riot, this little town in West Virginia at the beginning of the war, and the sheriff had to break it up. So those who wanted to fight for the north lined up on one side of the street and marched north out of town. Those who wanted to fight for the south lined up on the same street at the same time marched south. So you wonder how many times we would have run into each other in the course of 4 years of war. But the guy that told me that story, I haven't seen him in years now, so I'm not sure the name of that town. I'd like to find out and look into that sometime. No, I don't think it's Front Royal. It might have been. The name he told was, okay, that certainly would be one of them. But there's some other place he told me about. It was like a snowball resort. It's pretty close to that. You know, to a wedding village. I went to their town. Oh, now I can't remember. I can't go back and look it up. Now imagine for the North now, every time they lose a battle, they swap the leaders. So 3 days before the biggest battle, they swap the leaders again, replacing Hooker with General Meade. So Meade did not even know his own army. He's got to find his own, find these Southerners, like the biggest battle of the Civil War. So the first thing he did is send out Buford and cavalry to go find the Southern Army. He's backing him up with John Reynolds, go actually Meade. That's what brought them here. Off the south here, spies warning north of the closing in. Now, I want to give you a sense of how important these roads were. Someone did the math. So if you put the entire Northern Army, 90,000 plus men, on a single road, with all the wagon, horse, and cannon, they said it would stretch out for about 80 miles. So that's about from here to Washington, D.C. So this is why they come together. The roads will lead in together. You just have to do it to bump into each other. So imagine General Buford was going to set out to find us now. While I was looking, here comes about 20,000 men marching up the road. He was got less than 3,000. See where a lesser man justified falling back. In order to go find him, he's found him, coming to Gettysburg, and ride away to court. You see, Buford saw something about his lands and the cause of the fight instead of run. Look what he saw. Here on the left, look how they could hide their horses behind this hill. See that? Look at 1,000 horses over there. You cannot see them from here. We're almost on the top of the ridge. We still can't see. It's on the other side. And the men can get off their horse and lie down by this fence. We have an old Matthew Brady photograph showing this fence from 1863 in July. So the park can restore exactly the way it looked. You know, the cavalry carbine, they can fire rapidly lying down. On 7 shots a minute, they said lying down. Where the infantrymen with his old musket can only fire about 2 shots a minute standing up. So Buford he saw the good ground in his favor, he had a better weapon, and the element of surprise. There's an old man in here who wants to talk to you. So Henry looked out and saw John Burns lying on the ground in front of his house. He said, John, what are you doing out there? He said, Henry, I've been shot. He said, well, how'd you get shot? He said, I was out fighting the rebels. He said, go home and tell my wife to come get me. So imagine they said the bullets were flying around like angry bees. Henry went running back into town. He found John Burns' wife and told her what happened. And she said something like this. She said, I told him not to go out there. I told him if he did, I wouldn't come get him. I said, that's all she said. That's all she did. She's not going to get him. So he survived his 3 wounds and became the local hero. And when Lincoln came in November, 4 months later, he wanted to meet Burns. So still in the pew they sat in the Presbyterian Church here on Baltimore Street. And I think he got a nice statue, too. I think he and his wife had said a few words when he got back home, don't you think? That was the second Battle of Gettysburg. I think that one lasted longer than 3 days. See, all these little stories, see, behind the lines. But that's all the South expected, man. Just a bunch of local boys who just rush them aside and get supplies. So the South came in overconfident and caused them. So all of a sudden here in these woods, they ran smack into some of the Iron Brigade men from Michigan, Wisconsin, Indiana. Had this big black felt hat that really set them apart from other men. So they came roaring in from left to right, pounced on the South and drove them down the hill and captured their general named Archer. But later on when the South came back, they had this classic duel right here. I've never seen equal in the Civil War, where they stood here and shot at each other in 20 paces. 20 paces, like from the woods on the right to the woods on the left. So they just stood here, just like the Revolutionary War did, and blasted away at point-blank range until they destroyed each other literally. This one Southern company from North Carolina slowly pushed north up this hill, lost 90 out of 91 men. 90 out of 91. They said not one of them was captured, all shot. 90 out of 91 shot. The South had 14 flag bearers shot down. They slowly drove the north up and out of these woods. And to the north of Michigan, been 8 flag bearers shot on their side. So you can see it's a great privilege to carry the flag, but you don't last very long with that flag in those days. Imagine you put through 5 or 6 battles to promote you. But they always had a color guard of 8 men to protect the flag. All 8 got shot, which happened on both sides of this fight. They had a color company of 50 men. One of those guys that's railroad's got to pick up the flag going. More important to know which way we're going than one more guy shooting the gun. Now, see over here on the left is where General Reynolds was killed. He had just thrown in the Iron Brigade. You look back towards the Lutheran Seminary to our right. We'll see it up close later. And a bullet hit him right in the back of the head, dead before he hit the ring. But see, before he was hit, he did send word back to General Meade that we found him. We're going to try and hold on till you get here with the rest of the army. So, look how somebody described this landscape to me beautifully. It's like a ruffled potato chip. Find your ridges. See that? Now, we're going to set up first on your left, and then first and ridge. But knowing we get pushed off of that ridge, you can drop back to this ridge. Then they push off this roof, you fall back to the seminary ridge to our right. And then from that roof, you fall back to town to the cemetery ridge, and then fish up modern hills. So the modern military, they call that the defensive deck. Finding way for your vitals, they can always retreat to a better and better spot. And that's what they're doing throughout the day. Now in front of us, we're about to pass over the famous railroad cut. The first attack ahead of us is south up or left, and we're pushing everything back from left to right. And all of a sudden, the 6th Wisconsin part of the Iron Brigade came up and fired on the south. He sent him and jumped in this hole. Now, one of our guys, retired military, said, if you get in that hole, it'd be like trying to defend the bottom of the well. Once you're in there, you're helpless. No matter how many men you got, you're helpless. So they're going to charge over and trap them down the hole. They could have slaughtered them all, but they did not. Instead, they yelled down there, saying, "You better surrender, we're going to kill you," and they surrendered. So all kinds of acts of chivalry led to this war. I've seen men written about on both sides got killed trying to save the other side's wounded. So all kinds of powerful stories like that throughout the park. Now, they had a curious story about this guy from the south. His name was a Mississippi man, Colonel. I think it was. I don't use his name very often. My story was, he got in front of his men. He said, if any man cannot stand the smell of black gunpowder, you step out right now, you don't have to go. You are a villain. You are a villain. You don't like gunpowder, step out, you don't have to go. This one man stepped out, he said, get back in line there, mister. He didn't mean it. Didn't think anybody take him up on it. So the man that stepped out of line, we found, was wounded, but Hero Miller was killed. All kinds of twist to these stories. Now, we just turned onto what's called Buford Avenue. So notice as we travel around the park today, if you see something called a road, it was here. If you see something called an avenue, it was not here. Okay? So the avenue is built later, just right around to see the monument. And the name of the avenue is see after Northern General, not Southern General. So for the South, it's simply North Confederate, South Confederate, East Confederate, West Confederate. You see a name. Northern General defended that part of the line. Okay? Well, so you got the good ground view for pick the fight up. They can hide their horse here on the right, out of sight. 1 in every 4 men holding the horses. They can lie flat, just ready to fight. The sound coming from our left has to come up a sizable hill to get you. And what they're doing is the South is coming, they're counting the Southern flags. Each regiment has a flag. Once we're about 400, get an idea it's coming. You report it back to the infantry. This time they take longer. 52 strongest right away, there's no battle, no fire. Now, we've just gone through a heavy load of school groups we've had in the springtime, and we would often ask the students, now if you had to join the Army, if you had to join, would you rather be a foot soldier or a horse soldier? And usually pick the horse soldier. And I point out some of these lines along here, like this one coming up on the right, said, you can let your horse, cavalry, carry your blanket, your gun, all your stuff. The foot soldier has to carry all that on his back. Because when we're really persistent, rather than foot soldier. He gave the best answer why I've heard in 41 years. He said, because they got here last. Oh, good answer. That's a thinker, isn't it? So he would be in the battle, be the last one in the battle, not the first one in the battle. He's probably a major general by now, but never got his name. That was good. Never got famous. He's a thinker. But see, in the South, if you're going to be in the cavalry, you have to have your own horse. If your horse gets killed, you have to get another one. If you run out of horses, they're going to put you in the infantry. See, and after a while you begin to realize that's almost a death sentence where they just stood there and glanced at each other. You don't want to lose that last horse. In the North, you didn't have to worry. They'll get you another horse. So see, as time went on, the Northern cavalrymen got more and more bold. The Southern men got more and more timid. You don't want to run out of that last horse. Okay? And so by the time of Gettysburg, they're about an even par with each other. The North would continue to improve, and the Southern cavalry would continue to fade. And so that was a bad system the South had, having to bring your own horse. And as time goes on, the value of the horse will be more expensive to find, and you have less and less money to pay for it. Now, we're going to try and get you out here. We're going to walk up here on the left a minute and take a look at this big monument called the Eternal Light Peace Memorial. And then we'll talk about a little bit about the cans here and how these things work and how you can tell the difference between a real one and a rough one. Lights were bitter towards each other. They came back and shook them. They're really a great effort. They didn't come all these ways from wherever they were from. Now, by the way, one of the guys that died a short time after he got home was in this. His name was Moses Triplett. I don't know if anybody knows that name. Moses Triplett was in the Confederate Army, but deserted before Gettysburg, later joined the Union Army. And so the story was that his daughter, Irene Triplett, died in 2020. She's the last Civil War dependent pensioner, died in 2020. Had you ever heard of that? You heard about that?
Yeah, it was in the news.
Okay, very good, very good. And they said her dad was 81 when she was born.
Yep.
And he had a son who was 85. I don't know when the son died, but his daughter just died 5 years ago. So I always like to point that out to kids. You know, we look at this in Greek and Roman stuff. This is ancient history stuff. You know what's current events? There's someone's dad was in this thing. Not their great-great-grandfather, their dad was in this thing. That's amazing. Franklin Delano Roosevelt, who came to dedicate this monument. He said, yes, he did. He said, he remembered me. But I think, what was he talking about? A huge crowd of her people, and Jim Peg's right in the middle of it. The President of the United States recognized him. He said, yes, he did. He said, because just a few years later, he invited me to join the Army. Draft into World War II. Dear Mr. Tate, I need you to help me win World War II. Joe Buddy, FDR. So he had a good sense of humor and all this. But Jim grew up here in Gettysburg. See, he had a lot of good stuff about what it was like to grow up here. It was like money in the ground. Across the way, on the other side of this monument, they can shoot 2 miles. English Whitworth can an extraordinary range of 5 miles. That's amazing for that time for to shoot a can at 5 miles. The problem is you can't see who you're shooting at 5 miles away.
Wow.
It's amazing technology. To see with the round, well, you want it easy, you go in and out of this thing. So it's loose. And you lose a lot of the gunpowder explosion when you fire that thing. But the other cans, they have these different designs with the long, skinny shells. And you usually have this flimsy metal in the back of the shell. You fire it, they push against the harder metal instantly and trap the gases behind it. And the other guns are rifled, so it catches the grooves, it causes this thing to twist through the air and slice through instead of just pushing against the air, like these guns. Caught in the crossfire. What the North did was a brilliant counter. This group from Pennsylvania took their flag and simply moved the flag away from the men. The flag was always in the center of the regiment. So maybe 30 Southern Canada began to fire at the flag in an empty field a couple of hours. Really. So the more flag were still doing it, they even like to save his friend. All kinds of powerful stories, everything. But a whole little book just about that incident called The Color Episode, 149 Pennsylvania. Now see, down to our left, they had another line of northern men coming in. Howard's 11th Corps. Like I mentioned, Howard, one arm. But his men were down over there. And the one place where the North does not have the good ground. And the last clearing out there is where they have Barlow's Knoll. The northern line simply ends there. And all of a sudden, the new Southern force under Jubal Early came around behind them. And all of a sudden, down there, the North are getting shot at from the front, the side, and the back, all at the same time. But up here, a little different story at first. Robert rose to the south, launched an infantry across the field on the right. They had no scouts out in front, no skirmishing. Did not see it. The North did right here where we are, behind this little farmer's wall. The South marched right across in front of them. The North sprang up and blasted about this field to our right. They sent 500 men. The North Carolina was shot down out there on the right in a row. Boom! They all fell down together. Devastating. The North rushed out, captured 300 or 400 more of those men. The South almost did it again, running across the same field, the same field. Some of the survivors of Iverson brigade warned to go around the wall. Which reinforcing group came around the wall fighting, began to shoot down the north side, began to chase them all the way through the town. So can you see, if you're an old soldier coming back 75 years later, peace line dedication, your perception is colored by where you're standing. You see that? So if you're in this first Southern wave on the right, you got slaughtered. You lost. The second wave got around them and chased them back 2 miles and captured more men than you had. And your minimum, lost your minimum, there's a very instance. And so it cost oneness. So some of these men did not realize they lost the battle. They read about the history books years later. They read about, oh, we lost. They won their part. Makes a difference where you were is what you saw. I don't know if you ever heard of Jubal Early. He's Lee's bad old man. The only man who cut their cuss in front of Robert E. Lee. No one else would do that but old Jubal. He didn't care. So the story was that early in the war, he was under Stonewall Jackson's command. And Jackson wrote a note to Early one time saying, well, riding in the rear of your command the other day, I saw a lot of stragglers, men not with their unit. Why is that? Signed, T.J. Jackson. So Early wrote right back, said, if you saw a lot of stragglers in the rear of my command, it's because you're in the rear of my command. Signed, Jubilee Early. So he's a bear. Even his own people didn't like him. Someone who served with Early for 4 years of war said Early was unloving, unlovely, and unloved. Pretty scathing indictment. He's a fighter, though, and that's why Lee kept him on. But he's finally defeated 3 times in the Shenandoah Valley in 1864. Lee had to finally relieve him of command. He let him down in such a nice way that Early never took offense at Lee for that. And Lee said, you know, that no man could command without the respect of your men. You know, my respect for you is undimmed, your abilities. The men don't trust you. On that basis, I got to relieve you. So if anybody said anything bad about Robert E. Lee after the war, they would hear from Jubal Early. So Southern General Longstreet Early had a bitter feud that lasted 40 years in the press. And unfortunately, Longstreet was a career soldier, where Early was a lawyer. And so the way Early framed the debate, it's not you're right or I'm right, it's you're right or Lee's right. Anything Longstreet wrote or said was against Lee, not against Early. So Longstreet got the worst end of the arguments. But he'd fight you, he wouldn't stop fighting. They've had this bitter feud going on for 40 years. Now we're going to make a left turn up here, but on your right they have this flag bearer from the north. His name is Ben Crippen. The North is being forced back from ridge to ridge on day 1. He was seen holding his flag in one hand, shaking his fist in defiance with the other hand. He kept doing that, he was shot dead. The Southern General Meade saw him fall and regretted so his death. Both sides admired bravery. See, if Stonewall Jackson lived this, he would have said, shoot the brave one. No, the brave wasn't dead. So it's not the last age of chivalry, it's the first modern one at the same time. You admire the guy riding around on the white horse on the other side of shooting. Actually, that's the very guy he was shooting. So Jackson himself is dead by now, shot accidentally, found him before this in the dark, which he was first we found without Stonewall Jackson. Now see, as the North is falling back, it's always to a better and better spot. You see that? So guys here in the morning from north throwing together barricades and fence rails where we are now at the seminary. North, they fell back, would always fall back to a better spot. And imagine a line of 20 cannons here. Look out the south and right, you're charging uphill across a lot of open ground together. And the south getting really massive. There's one company from South Carolina attacked the seminary, lost 34 out of 39 men the first blast. The line was staggered, and their leader, Abner Parent on horseback, got out in front and led the charge and broke the line. This guy said to stand on open ground was impossible. Retreat was unthinkable. Go forward was ordered. And he forward broke the line. Now here on the left, here's the main seminary building back then. Many of you saw the movie Gettysburg. They showed Buford up in the tower. They let him use the actual building in some of the scenes in the movie. But for the wide shots, he used the fake close-ups. He used the real building. Now, this building here on your left we're passing was here then, called the Schmucker House. The Reverend Samuel Schmucker, who lived here, is the president of the seminary. He's a noted abolitionist. So he fled when the battle started. He came back afterwards to find the South and gotten into his home, and they trashed him. That's against Lee's orders to respect private property. Apparently they learned he's an abolitionist and resented that. He tore up his place. So he came back. All of his books are scattered around the grounds here. His papers are all scattered everywhere and stomped on, all but one. Which book remained? The Bible, yes. He opened up the Bible and found this Southern man had written a note in there saying he had found this on the floor. And he wrote, "I want you to know I put it back." He signed his name. See, years ago we went looking for that Bible and we found it. It's in the Lutheran Seminary Library in a vault. He signed his name J.G. Beard. One of our many trips to the archives, we looked him up. It was Judson G. Beard from Georgia, writing this here after day one. And so we believe that was him, and he survived the war. So see, it doesn't change the story. It's just interesting to see the rest of the story. But always interesting little stories. And every now and then we'll find a photograph. Now, you know, in our museum, they have a great picture of the view of the town of Gettysburg. Look at left, and you can see what it looked like back then, very soon after the battle. And so that's exactly Lee would have. He arrives on the seminary ridge, just in time to see the Northern Line collapsing here, and everything running back through the town to Cemetery Hill. So just a second off to your left, I think you'll see a light blue water tower right on Cemetery Hill. You see it over there? That's what the North are running back to. Between here and there, a lot of open ground, crisscrossed by fences. So what Lee is going to see is victory. So Lee's going to send word off to our left to Richard S. Ewell. He's driving down from the north, and he tells Ewell, keep going, take the hills over there. But then he added that these two fatal words. Anybody know those words? Goes. What was it? If practicable. Yeah, an old word that we don't use anymore. If practicable. And so Ewell hesitated and stopped in town. That was the end of day one. So understand they will always argue that question. Could the South really have done it? You got them outnumbered 2 to 1. You're driving through town, you're shooting them back. It looks like a cinch. Keep going. But see, once you hit the town, your battle line disintegrates. Your men are chasing off after prisoners, hiding in the basements and closets. Pulling out thousands of prisoners. You're inundated by your success. So it was not practical to Ewell to keep going. But I always did like Ewell because he admitted mistakes. He said later on it took a dozen blunders to lose Gettysburg, and I made most of them. So an honest man. Now, by the way, look at this line of cannons are passing. This is impressive and rare. See this many guns in a row. When the War Department came along to study the battle, 1890s. There were no Southern miners to look at. So they said, let's get all these old cannons out of storage. We'll bring them back here to Gettysburg. This one stretch and put them back gun for gun. The North had 6-gun batteries, the South had 4-gun batteries. Then they put them all back. So remember this later on when we talked about the Great Cannonade. They said you can hit us in Pittsburgh, 180 miles away. Now under the trees to our left we have the North Carolina Memorial. That was done by an artist named Gutzon Borglum. Anybody recognize that name? He did Mount Rushmore, President's Faces. But they were saying that's the most sculptural monument we have at the park. I should tell you, I majored in art, not history. I always liked both. But in art school, they tell you there's 4 plastic elements instead of a great work of art. That one is all 4. The first plastic element is repetition. There's a repetition. These soldiers going across this field. They're all different poses. That's the variation. Second plastic element. They're all different poses. Emphasis is the third plastic element. And the fourth one is the fourth one is I'll think of it here in a minute. But the third one, see, the way this artist got emphasis on the faces is he blurred everything else. The motion, fourth lesson is motion. So that thing, a lot of those guys go across that field day 3 in motion and not come back. Make it sharp. That's the emotional field. Now here's Robert E. Lee now on top of the Virginia Memorial. One of our guides was telling me a story about Lee I did not know here, of this monument here. The artist that did the statue of Lee was Frederick W. Sievers. 2 years after he did this nice statue of Lee, Frederick W. Sievers did a statue of Stonewall Jackson down in Richmond. They're identical. He just changed the head. He thought, I'm not going to make a whole of the horse. Horses are hard. So let's just make a second cast of this. Cut Lee's head up, put Jackson on his place. There you go. That's what he did. But somebody pointed out, you know, Lee's horse, very famous horse, Traveler. Jackson's horse, famous horse, but it's Little Sorrow, a small, nondescript horse. But then him riding Lee's horse down, Traveler, that's the ones they took down. Now, General Lee must have been disappointed. They started the battle in the first place, and they failed to follow up on it while they were winning. But these are realists. They just decided, let's figure out what to do now. Now, General Meade is on the other side. We'll see him up close later. But they said Lee was considered the handsomest man of his day. They said General Meade looked like a bald-headed, goggle-eyed, snapping turtle. Not look how much of a soldier compared with Lee. But he's a good one. Lee knew it. So Lee learned from the spy Harrison, North and Swiss commanders who put in Meade. A lot of Lee's staff would congratulate Lee and his easy opponent. Lee corrected right away. He said, General Meade, to make no mistake, if I make one, then they quickly capitalize on it. But not to Meade himself, the earlier general was done, he'd have to beat him. So Lee knew all these guys. You know, that they all went to West Point, not together, but Lee's older than most of them. At least 56, Meade's 48. They're both engineers and would pass each other a lot. The old army, the smaller army. And so Lee would try stuff against people like McClellan, Burnside, and Hooker. He'd never try against someone like Peter Grant. He knew all these guys. He knew him. Now imagine if you're General Meade. You arrive off to your left, it's after midnight and you're losing. Best man Reynolds is dead. The guy you trusted the most is dead. 2 of your Army Corps have been destroyed. The rest of the North's Army is still scattered in front of us to our south. Your biggest northern group, 35 miles away. Robert E. Lee, 1 mile. Unknown strength here on Seminary Ridge. So you can see where a lesser man, Meade, would have easily said, let's retreat. He did not. So he deserves a lot of credit. He doesn't get it. So, in the movie Gettysburg, Meade got to say 3 lines of a 4-hour movie. He comes in at the end of the day and the first night and says, this good ground twice. And he says it's pretty dark out there. That's all I got to say. So he deserves more than that. But we'll see, he's like the good coaches, putting in the right people at the right time to win. They're going to win because of what Meade's doing. He's going to stay on the defense. That turned out to be the winning strategy. Now we're done with day 1, everybody, okay? Moving on to day 2. Is everybody doing okay? It's all making sense, okay? So they blundered into each other, and the South had more men closer, so they drove the North back, and they stopped, perhaps on the verge of victory. Okay? Now, I don't know if you know about the Corps badges. Corps badges. In the North, they have 7 Army groups called Army Corps, C-O-R-P-S. Each one's at least 10,000 men. could not recognize your men by their faces. You couldn't do it. Those faces are always changing. People get shot and stick and replace them all the time with other men. So in the North, they invented those badges, they wear their hats. We get back on the northern line, you'll see it on the monuments. So Reynolds men have a round shirt. Howard's men north of town is the crescent moon. Other guys will see have a shamrock, diamond, or star, Maltese cross. It doesn't mean anything. It's just a way to identify your men. But to understand, Lee could look at the prisoners they've been taken. On the first day, only 2 corps batteries showing up. That meant only 2 corps there. But Lee know the other 5 can't be far behind. So Lee's instinct was, we need to attack. You know, we need to hit them fast, hit them hard, hit them on the end of the line before they get too strong for them. So what he wants to do is Civil War 101, hit him on the ends of the line. So he wants Longstreet, his best man, to attack the round top. Maybe you can see off to our left front. You get a better look at it later. If you know the story, Longstreet is against attacking. Longstreet remembers Fredericksburg. He's the one that sat on a nice big hill behind a stone wall, sunken road, mowed down everybody that came out. Longstreet hardly lost any of his own men. So Longstreet said, Lee, those hills off to your left are too strong. Let's not try this thing. Let's go around him, head on down to Washington. We'll get down there, we'll dig in, and make them attack us. Lee says, no, we're not going to do that. So the move to Gettysburg sounded like a wonderful idea because they did not try it, so it did not fail. You know why Lee says no to it? First of all, without the Southern cavalry, without Jeb Stuart's off the raid, you have no idea where the Northern Army is located. Somewhere out there, 5 other Army Corps, and we don't know where they are. You have a huge wagon that captures supplies. How can you protect the wagon if you don't know the enemy? And worse than anything else, they don't have to attack them. Here in the north this time. Wherever you stop down towards Washington, all they got to do is surround you. They can starve you out in no time. So Lee is saying, no, Longstreet, you can't do that. We're going to whip them. They're going to whip us right here. Longstreet was sulking at the rear of the column. They got way off track. So this one modern military man was giving us a nice talk about this one time, and this discussion between Lee and Longstreet. And they said, where was Lee on the second day? If Longstreet got the main attack, attacking the round tops on your left, you know he didn't want to do it for you. Why wasn't Lee down there to supervise in person? Bill said, yeah, I guess it's Lee's fault. He should have been down there. This instructor said, wait a minute, Longstreet's your best man. With the death of Stonewall Jackson and divided his corps into 2 parts, part went to AP Hill was too aggressive. He started about Lee told him not to start. Hill turned out to be too timid to follow up on it. So Lee is way around on the other side of a southern line that's 6.5 miles long with Ewell, waiting to hear Longstreet's attack again. Nothing's happening. So as Lee himself will finally get on his horse, ride all the way down to see what the holdup is. Imagine Lee asking everybody seen along the route, in his past, have you seen Longstreet? So this young officer came up to Lee finally and said, General Lee, I see some men moving out here at the south end of the battlefield. Lee said to him, are they ours or theirs? The man said, I don't know. Lee said, are they coming towards us and going away from us? So I can't tell. Lee said, what size force is it? He said, I don't know. Lee got mad. He said, young man, if I was a young officer, I would go find out. You see, one perfectly good connected to me, you see men moving on a battlefield. That doesn't help me at all, does it? So you can see Lee's level of frustration is very, very high. And all the time they wasted, they're getting stronger and stronger. Now, we did promise you a restroom break. Instead of coming up here, this is where they used to have the South End Guide Station. And some of our older guides like to work on these satellite areas to see coming. Come with a big motor home, they got 5 dogs and 3 kittens, so I'm waiting for somebody to run there and get your guy. One of the things they used to do, I'm told, they take dollar bills and soak them in oil. So they needed change, and so we didn't want it. So I just keep got the same dollar bill from here. And I'm reading apart. So somebody got to take the pressure, then be pressure. On somebody in the battle, what he did. Now, you're smart, you let him tell you that before you tell him the rest. Now, Mom, before you get out, over here is the Eisenhower farm. Eisenhower not from here, but he'd been here in World War I. training a tank corps. He got ready to retire. This farm on your left came open, so he bought it. So that's the main farm over this way. We had wealthy friends that bought land on either side, so they had Farm 1, Farm 2, and Farm 3. And lucky for us, all that land was turned over to the park when Eisenhower died. So otherwise you might have a shopping mall or a Disney World right beside the Confederate line. But see, now here, the women's restroom is on the right, men's on the left. When you get out, watch out for this little yellow curve, it's a half step. People tend to trip on it. Then you come back and pick up where left off. Now see, when Lee is having trouble with General Longstreet here on the second day, General Meade, the North Commander, is having his own troubles. There's a general named Dan Sickles. Sickles is a New York City political hero. And see, something happened to Sickles in the last battle. Was covering his thoughts in Gettysburg. Chancellorsville, 2 months earlier, he was on this high ground, an Hazel Grove. The line was shaped like a V, pointing toward the enemy. They said, you need to pull your line back and straighten it out. And so he did. But as soon as they pulled off the high ground, the South Buchanans on it crushed them. And the North lost the Battle of Chancellorsville. So 2 months later, we'll see Sickles in some low ground over here near the Round Top area. I'll show you that here in just a minute. They didn't like it down here. It was low, swampy ground. So looking out here in front of us, the high ground on the Emmitsburg Road, out by the peach orchard area coming up. So Sickles sent out a patrol into these woods on your left and found the South hiding in the woods. He sent out the famous Berdan sharpshooters and wearing green uniforms. They're all expert marksmen. And Bristol, the fight with the South, ran back to warn Sickles about it and caused him to move out here to the high ground. He wants to get the high ground this time, not let the enemy have it, being like he did 2 months earlier. Sickles moved out, even though he's got 10,000 men. His men just have the diamond shapes to line himself ahead. He did not have enough to stretch them your back to come around to him. So what we got, this thing is starting to unfold on day 2, are 10,000 northern men way out of position. 21,000 Confederates to your left, preparing to attack. And the key to the battle for the little Round Top unguarded, the North doesn't even know it. So not good for the North. So luckily, Meade did not trust General Sickles. He came out here to the peach orchard area on your right and talked to Sickles in person. He said, General Sickles, you seem to be pretty far in advance of the main line. Sickles said, yeah, I want to get the high ground in front of me. Meade points out the map behind us, so there's high ground all the way over there. In other words, you're not where I told you to be. So Sickles said, do you want me to pull back? Right to the south attack. Meade said, too late to pull back. You have to fight it out, not go for help. So look how we're on the Wheatfield Road right now. Look how Sickles has cannons set up, you see, and then more cannons, and more cannons, and more cannons. But there are no infantry supports here. They're cannons. That's dangerous. So see, cannons are great against lots of them, not very good against one. So one good Southern sniper out on the right can pick off your 10-man crew. Heading with that cannon. So this Massachusetts battery on the left got the worst of it. They're falling back towards this barn. Look over here at this barn. There's a cannonball hole right through the red brickwork. See that? There's a couple famous photographs taken after the battle of this Bigelow's battery in Massachusetts trying to pull back from here to that barn. They lost 80 out of 88 horses trying to do that. The South shooting down the horses, trying to capture the cannon. The guns are overrun by the South, recaptured, and counterattack, coming all the way across from Combs Hill. But see, Sickles never got court-martialed because over near that barn, he lost his leg. So instead of getting court-martialed, he got the Medal of Honor. He come back to all the reunions for 50 years, telling everyone what a great job he done, what a lousy General Meade was. Now here's the worst place of all at Gettysburg, the Wheatfield. There's one field here on the right. It changed hands on day 2, 6 different times. They said it was all over you could walk across from entirely at the bottom. So the man we don't know much about, his name was Elliott. He created this map called the Elliott map. He's making slash marks in the map where the grays were. That's all you see are hundreds of slash marks. The only kind of very weapons about. So they dug up the northern there within a year. We buried them. The southern never left out there. all over the mountain. 9 shallow range. 9 southern women looking at people dead, taking back south. So thanks to the Elliott map, so when we find one grave, you can find 200 all the road. They're in erosion. That's how they're able to get a lot of this. Oh, we got some production in here. We have a little problem here in the Valley of Death. These beavers have moved in, and they dammed up this little stream that meanders through the Valley of Death here. It's called Plum Run. Now it's called Bloody Run. Now it's getting to be Bloody Lake. See, the park's not allowed to destroy a beaver dams right near the quantity. What to do about this mess? You see right on your left, in the middle of that, there's the beaver's home. So, at one point, you see this tree stuff growing here on the left. That got so thick, you can be right here, you cannot see Little Round Top. Thanks to the beavers, they're chewing it up. I guess why the park's not so anxious to get rid of them just yet. But one time they're really concerned about this monument down here at the end of the Valley of Death to our left. It's almost surrounded by water. So the park had the bright idea to put a pipe to the beaver dam, let the water drain down. Well, they just made another dam. I think just recently they put another pipe in here, it looks like. So I'm going to run around a big pipe early yesterday. Now see on your right here is where Sickle Vine ends and Devil's Den. I see in Sickle View, I cannot leave Little Round Top on the left of the garden. I am guarding in front of it. So just like Buford and Reynolds and Howard fell back on day 1 to higher ground, Sickle View, I can fall back on day 2 to higher ground. It's like they no different. But see, the worst thing was he did not tell anybody he left his feet around that garden. He was ordered to cook it on the hill 4 different times. He never did it. So luckily, the North Meade did not trust him. So he sent a man named Warren down to check on him. He saw the hill a garden time to save him. You know, one of the big heroes in all the literature of Little Round Top is Colonel Chamberlain from Maine. He's a college professor from Bowdoin College in Maine. And luckily, they put him on the end of the army. This is coming up out this next intersection. So we're going to make a left turn here. If you ever come back, if you drive down here, just in front of us, they have a little parking lot with 3 car spaces. You can park there and walk right up to the 20th lanes monument. But look over here. As you go up the hill, be on your right. Over and over again, the South charged the North defending. Alabama against Maine. And the boys from Maine held them off each time. So the South then tried to go around them, come around behind it. So Chamberlain, seeing what they're up to, swung back and left and formed this V-shaped line. So Chamberlain could stand in the pocket and direct traffic left and back to right, back to left, back to right. That's what's going on in the Grander Skill, the fish one. They're moving back and forth, they can help each other. I always said the South never formed a bravery, not fighting a team, nor one. That made all the difference. And see, finally when the boys from Maine Rank running out of ammunition, last resort, fixed bayonets and charge. That's what they did. It was so shocking to the South that they would do that. A lot of Southern men just dropped the guns and threw up their hands and surrendered. Chamberlain got the Medal of Honor for his actions here, I think rightly so, and go on to become 4-time governor of Maine. Now, they would like us to go back here. We're going to go back behind the bus here. We'll see if we can cross this crosswalk behind us. We'll go up here and see if we can find a good place to stand. And I think you can really see why this hill matters so much. But you see, if you're any of the guys up here on this hill to the north that saved Little Round Top, this is where we won the Battle of Gettysburg. Your view. So Chamberlain got in a little trouble bragging about it one time. There's some other men from the third day's battle. These guys that defended against Pickett said, Chamberlain, we were here now. We felt we won the battle on day 3. So Chamberlain was a smart man. He said later that every slap on the picket fence trying to keep the pigs out. They all did a good job, first day, second day, and third. But once you walk over here, take a look at this little wayside plaque they put up here on the other side of where we are now. There's a nice diagram showing what this looked like. See where Chamberlain was by Meade. Okay, let's go take a look at it, then we'll take a view at the top of the hill. Okay. So Rourke, first in his class at West Point. All you can think to say at that moment, down this way. They ran right out to the south and helped drive back these Texas boys here who are crushing this little Michigan regiment. But you see also in the background there's the fight for Devil's Den. See? So let's go see if we can find a good place to stand and see why it's so bad.
Okay. Maybe up this way, I think. I mean, I guess as good as mine. Jackpot.
On these rocks, you'd be pretty safe. Now, I'm going to step right over here a second. So get everybody sort of down to where you can see here a little bit. You know, if somebody wants to go down over here, they can step over here too. So I can see that from that point. So I'll see pretty well. I want to, especially here when you can see this big Pennsylvania monument. You see it where you're standing? The big dome monument. Biggest monument we got on the battle. It's about a mile away. Pennsylvania sign. You see the green barrel Napoleon cannon could hit 1 mile away. That's about where the Pennsylvania monument is.
Oh my gosh.
Okay. And see right behind the dome where the trees are, that's called Ziegler's Grove. That is 2 miles. Blackman decided to hit that. And see from that point, the northern line bends. It goes around to a Cemetery Hill and then on around to Culp's Hill, okay? But see, I was telling you about how bad the southern fuses were, right? Did I mention that? What did we say, 1 in how many blown up correctly? 15, 1 in 15 blown up correctly. I always like to say, I guarantee if the South had gotten this hill while it's unguarded by Sickles on day 2, put just 2 cannons up there, start shooting down a length of 90,000 men in a row, you can see that 15 out of 15 will come down. It doesn't matter where it blows up, if it blows up, every shot they erodes the soul. That's where the North has got to hold this hill, or they lose the battle. So General Meade himself testified later before the Special Committee on the Conduct of the War. He said if the South had taken this hill, meaning Little Round Top, said I could not have stayed at Gettysburg. If I can't stay, in my book, it means leave. So you see how important this hill would be. So see, Meade saw this hill. He rode the whole length of his line in the dark that first night. It's a full moon. He got up here in this hill and he could see his line was dominated by this hill. So he put men on the hill during the night of the 1st. But they were removed when Sickles moved in with Logan. Meade is saying, okay, great. Now if Sickles come with 10,000 more men, he left the guys up here on this hill with a star, go back to Culp's Hill, keep their core together. The rest of the corps over to Culp's Hill. So Sickles replacing some of those men. He never did. But look out this way here. You see out here, there's a red barn out here in the distance. Can y'all see that? 3 little white things on the roof. Right above it, there's the white steeple, the Lutheran Cemetery. You see that? Okay.
Wow.
And look out to the right of that white steeple. That northern line that continues off to the right a bit, and out there, rise up just a little bit, and it slowly comes back down. That white dot out there is the peace memorial of the old veterans came shook hands. 1938. This English cancer fire there hit the ground. That's 5 miles away. Okay. But see, if you're Dan Sickles, the first is way over there. What on earth are you doing way over here guarding a bunch of rocks? See, Sickles not leading your cannons up here on this hill with all these rocks in there. Look at it. It doesn't look like it's doable. But it's hard to appreciate manpower.
I say, you get 100 guys who get this Chancellorsville hill, they will get it up the hill, one way or another. They have to lift it over all these rocks, they'll do it. See, but Sickles not in that mindset. He doesn't think it matters. But see, Sickles wants to be a hero. And see, he's looking out to his front with his red barns up. He's thinking, if I'm out there, I'm a player. I'm involved. I can either sail over and hit them, if they hit me first, I can always fall back in this hill. But either way, I'll still be involved in the fight. So he thought he had enough men to get that and this. But see, Meade wants them in a straight line, essentially. From here to that Pennsylvania line. He's trying to go from the Pennsylvania line out to the Red Barns and then back to here. He just didn't have enough men to do that. So he ran out of men down here in the rocks and Devil's Gate. Well, all of a sudden, that comes a guy that really saved the day here, General Gouverneur K. Warren, see, with the binoculars. And see what Warren did next, I think it's still my all-time favorite story. Man, sun was shining, it was like that. Late in the afternoon, then towards the afternoon, then close to the anniversary of the battle. Keep looking over there in those woods while I'm talking. Warren had him fire off a cannon shot from Devil's Den off towards those far woods beyond the meadow. They fired off a shot into the woods. Long Chief Sutterman over there turned around and looked up. When they did that, the sunlight reflected right off the metal bayonets. Look at the cars going down the road. See the sun shines right off the car. Down below you see it too. So all of a sudden Warren saw this flash shoot through the wood and you knew, there they are. Isn't that clever?
Yeah.
If it had been a cloudy day, they wouldn't have seen him in time. As it was, he only won the race by 10 minutes. So Warren said, well, thrilling and horrifying, no, he's right. They're coming around Sickles, they're heading for this hill. He's almost alone in it. So Warren and his staff were racing off to get help. So imagine down near this intersection below us, this Colonel Strong Vincent from Erie, Pennsylvania, intercept this Vincent. We learned the hills on guard, he said, I'll take mine with me. So I say, imagine the moral code that have to do that. Men are dying out here. That's where you were to go to help Sickles. Then don't fight here yet. You're going to turn around that road, run away from that valley, come back up here. You see, if you are wrong, you're in big, big trouble. Right. Out here about 10 minutes. So now I would have thought, if I were looking for 20 of the rain, I'd find a right up here in the top of the hill. Any of those would the top. Okay? Yeah. But that's not what you do. Strong Vincent saw it. If we're standing up here, look on the south, the country is down. You take a little round, just behind this hill, from the ocean of wagons and gardens. You can't shoot from this thing, you can't see it. So that's why he pushed his 4 regulars down this way, over the hill, to plug up that ravine. And Strong Vincent shot down, posting his men. The last over in the hill, don't give in. He died of a hero's death a few days later. But meanwhile, Warren goes rushing off to get more help. He ran to that capital war. War in Ireland, raising boxes. So get up here and I'll take responsibility. But you really trusted Warren to come rushing for the. We got to the summit where we're standing. The guns weren't loaded. It took 30 seconds to load a musket. No time to do it. 2 Texas regiments, crushing this little Michigan regiment down over the hill here. They're on the shelf there, heading for the top of the hill. And you come up with an empty gun to confront them. And not a second. So Rourke put himself in front of his men, said down this way, and they ran right at him and just shoved him back down the hill. So Rourke leading the charge, shot right in the throat to kill. But somebody said, imagine the only rough, tough Texans coming up the hill, 500 New Yorkers flying over the hill. You would not be coming out of the guns. Never in your mind. You should quickly, but now your gun's not loaded. You send theirs this way. So somebody said it might have been better for the South if the North had fired first. You know the gun's empty, go get them. They didn't know that. See? So you don't want somebody to come right and shoot you in the chest 2 feet. So they turned around and ran back down the hill. By the time they reloaded and came back, the rest of the army got But what if it had been a cloudy day? July 2nd, 1863, the South takes the hill. What if Meade sent anybody but Warren? The South might have taken the hill. They might not have followed the other guy, they followed Warren. What if Strong Vincent, O'Rourke, and Chamberlain not done what they did? What if Longstreet was a good soldier, not stopped to argue this with him, just done it? What if the South cavalry not gone off on the raid, they wouldn't have got lost? So any one of these things turned around, any one of these things, you're going to have a totally different outcome in this battle. See that? There's a lot of what ifs at Gettysburg, a lot of them on this hill, a little round hill. So one of the, a lot of the old Southern men said later, it's Providence. This country's meant to stay together. Okay, forget it. You know, had to be Providence. All these seem to fall in line just over that way. Exactly. But see now, one more thing I was going to tell you. What was it? Oh, this statue one should be looking off to see the reflection. Hey, do you know the story about John Bell Hood? He's born
out of Coltshill, he's aspiring Kansas on the other side. That's not doing anything to pin them down like we hoped they would. So they're going to continue to move in from the right across the back roads this way, just rush back and stop Buell the next morning. He told the cavalry commander Stewart, keep me informed. Stewart went off on a raid. He's only now getting back. Yet despite all that, they now destroyed 3 of the 7 Army Corps. They captured 8 of the 10 roads to Gettysburg. If Lee was to give up and go home, no. You see, not yet. So you're still winning, you just haven't won. The bomb she called this fight out to her left here on the second day at Gettysburg, the best 3 hours fighting done by any army on any field. Less than a third of Lee's men, didn't have pickets for day 3. Took on close to half the North's army and drove it back. But see, a lot of this because of Sigel's error of being out so far, they had to reinforce it piecemeal. So they're sending in 10,000 guys, a solid block. I sent 2,000 over here, 2,000 over here, 2,000 over here, see? And that's why we don't want you to do as well as they did. Now here on the right, here's the guy that came in last in North. This General John Sedgwick from Connecticut. He's been marched 35 miles to Gettysburg in 14 hours. Right in the battle when they got here too. It's kind of hot, humid weather. The only saving grace it started at night. Okay. Now, one of our guys is interested in the Marine Corps, and he's was studying the Marines in the 1920s, how they wanted to show off the Marines by marching from their base in Quantico near Washington all the way to Gettysburg. So they're averaging 15 miles every day. The last they went 20 miles. And see, a lot of Civil War veterans, he's still alive in the 1920s, come out and cheer on these young Marines going through their village. And so when they got here, this one young Marine was talking to a Civil War veteran. He said, you know, old man, we just walked 20 miles today. Because we had to do that in the Civil War. I was talking with a Sedgwick, of all people. He said, Sonny, you don't know what you're talking about. We went 35 miles in 14 hours and stopped Longstreet, Lee's best general. That's a good come up with, isn't it, for a young Marine? I always tell the kids, you got to watch who you're bragging to. They might have done something you never dreamed to do. So that's an interesting thing. But now imagine it. Lee could look at the prisoners they've taken. See all 7 Corps badges showing up on the prisoners' hats. That means Lee's outnumbered. You know, there's more and better cannons, better fuse, and all that. But Lee still has this one piece in the hole. What's supposed to make biggest charge work for you. You know what it was? It's this. The southern line wrapped around the northern line is 6.5 miles long. That means 6.5 miles of canvas. The northern line we're on now is 3.5 miles long. That means 3.5 miles of canvas. So see, the South has the room put more cannons on line than they did. Okay? So where the North would be shooting out, dispersing their fire, the South is shooting in, concentrating their fire. What we see here is a bald rig. Now we've had people ask us sometimes right around here, why didn't they hide behind the monuments? And the first couple of times you hear they think they're joking, and they realize, no, they're not joking. They usually try and get in early on. No, the miners came later. There's just no cover here. So the cannons have been right out in the open field. Now coming up on the left, they have a group from Minnesota. They had to fill a hole in the sickle line on day 2, and they did it, but lost 82% of their men in 10 minutes time. They're outnumbered by the South 6-1. They charged in there and stopped it, but lost terribly. They're known ever since the battle as a regiment with a reputation. So I said, this is something not apparent to Lee at the time. The Union resolved. The North is willing to do whatever it takes to win. Minnesota epitomized it, not shaking their boots like we thought they would. Now here's Pennsylvania is mine. We are in Pennsylvania. Not got done in another state, the biggest monument of all. And around the base have the names of all 34,000 of their men. They were killed from starvers. Some are very sharp guys. There's 3 brothers on there named Kramer, 142nd Pennsylvania. All 3 brothers were killed or mortally wounded on day 1. So I don't know if another family had to happen, at least in this battle. That's pretty sad. You know, Chamberlain almost got him and his 2 brothers killed. They run up the hill together. The movie Gettysburg only shows 2 brothers. There's 3 brothers. They all run up together, and the Southern cannonball zipping by, almost killing all 3 of them. And Chamberlain split up the brothers. So 1 to the front, 1 to the rear. So another shell like that can make it hard on brother. That would do it. Almost all 3 of his sons in 1 shot. Now see, imagine we're sitting around here on day 3 for the North, finishing up lunch, okay? And all of a sudden, way off to our left, on the southern line we saw earlier, 2 southern cannon would fire a signal, and 150 cannons go off at once. Over here, you got 5 seconds to find some cover, and there's none. So all you can do is hit the deck and choke it out, blown to pieces. But they found men dead with food still in their mouth. They're not getting a chance to swallow the last little bite of lunch. 5 seconds later, they'll over to your death. Terrifying, absolutely terrifying. Shock and awe comes to mind. They said you could hit us in Pittsburgh, 180 miles away. But see, the northern gunners, they stood up and they began to shoot back. And the smoke began to cloud the field. They couldn't see anything. So more and more of the southern cannonballs began to overshoot the ridge here. They're blowing up like crazy off to our right and the northern rear. But see, remember how you said you do it. You fire 1 shot, right? Sure, it blows up, cut the fuse, longer, shorter, and try again. The crowd was 150 to not once. Which one was yours? Could not possibly tell. So most of the shells were overshooting the target. They didn't realize it. And pouring it in. Now the man in charge of the cannonade from the South was Meade P. Alexander, Edward Porter Alexander. He's talking about what went wrong. Why did so little damage to man's cannonade? He said, what went wrong? Most of our southern cannon we saw off to your left were lined up roughly parallel. Don't line them all down. Very easy to overshoot and undershoot. He said, what we should have done is put cannons straight ahead of us. Now we can shoot all the way down the little roundup. So up the line or down line, does not matter where it comes down. It will hit somebody every time. See, the reason they didn't think to do that is that's where the town was. No one thought about shooting over buildings. No one thought of indirect fire. So all these little woulda, shoulda, coulda things might have changed history. But see what the North finally did is another brilliant move on their part. They stopped firing their cannons. They played dead. The man who had gotten to stop firing was Henry Hunt, Detroit, Michigan. He's in charge of all the northern cannon. He's mad they're missing. They can be happy they're missing. He's mad. You know why he's mad? Because he was the instructor of Westmore who taught those guys how to shoot those cannons. He's their teacher. So looked him up in Appomattox and chewed him out about it too. So you guys should have killed us again. You're just spreading your fire all over the place. You're not concentrating like we taught you in class. He's the most brilliant artillery in the war, so be in your plan. this is going to work. But see, it's not Lee's job to run around and aim all the cannon. Not the plan of shock and awe. Believing they've done it, sound charge. Now see, it's really too far to run across that field for our left. It's about a mile across and to march. And so as both sides stopped shooting their cannons, the smoke began to rise up like a big curtain. You can see it clearly. So this guy from Vermont, the first and only battle, he looked at him coming and he said, I wish I was already dead. It never seemed possible to stop him. But the more veteran men were chanting, Fredericksburg, Fredericksburg. We'll get him back from Fredericksburg. Slaughtered us like that. Run up a big hill across the open field. Let him come. So see, I'm not sure how far they let the South get. But all of a sudden, from a little round top behind us, all the way up this line, 80 to 100 Northern cannon cut loose. Lee's over there across the field watching. These cannons erupted. And I always felt maybe that was Lee's biggest mistake. He did not try and stop it. But let's say he could by snapping his fingers. Call the whole thing off and not lose another man. Call the whole thing off. They're still going to have to go home. They're almost out of ammunition. Grant's going to take Vicksburg the next day. Going home is slow death. But if this works, you can win the war. You annihilate the Army of the Potomac. 8 out of 10 roads in the southern end. Just to your right is road number 9. And one of you to get that road. The Southern Cavalry circled around to road number 10. And we stopped up. I got to go to Custer. George Armstrong Custer. Later built the little big one. It's Custer's first stand in Gettysburg. But you got to go through it. You got to find out. Then you're out and all in. But see, when they got to the road on the left, we had climbing those fences. All these Northern riflemen where we are began to fire too. They found one rail down there, just one rail with over 800 bullet holes in one rail. They still pressed on. So it was amazing anybody made it to the copse of trees, but they did. So the sound still kept going through all this. And this one Confederate yelled out above this roar of battle saying, "Home, boys." Home was right over this hill. We can just cut to this one last time, we can go home. So I always said it's probably the sentiment of every soldier in every war, wouldn't you think? If we did this thing, we do it so we can go home. That's why they kept going. So they reached a little clump of trees here on the left. This is as far as they got. This became known later as the high water mark of the Confederacy. So that painting we have in our museum, the cyclorama, is trying to freeze this moment in time. The South comes surging up and over the wall for our left. The North will be rushing up in from the right to stop it. But see, right by this left gun is where Southern General Armistead fell. His best friend, the man who defended us, General Hancock. They were together out in Los Angeles. They shook hands and parted his friends and almost met hands. Hancock was wounded by halfway down the Pennsylvania line in his man. There on the right of the horseback is the North commander, General Meade. Look how he and Lee face each other across this field for all time. Very symbolic. But see, Meade is forever criticized. The South was finally beaten. He did not counterattack. Look at that. It works both ways. You have to go back across the same open ground to 150 Southern cannon. So Meade is unwilling to repeat the same mistake Lee just made reversed. They were just staring at each other all the next day. Then Lee would escape in a blinding rainstorm back into the mountains and back to the south. The war would drag on almost 2 more years. So understand this is the turning point of the war, not the end, not by a long shot. 2 more years of bloody war to go. Now see, the thing that angered Mr. Lincoln is what Meade wrote later, that Meade wrote, "We have driven the enemy from our soil." You see, a poor choice of words. Lincoln picked up on it right away too. He said, "Our soil. The whole country is our soil. We're not just trying to shoo it back into the South like a flock of geese. We're trying to destroy their army to restore the Union." Doesn't he get all that? See? So what? No. Mark here. Now see, in front of us now is the National Cemetery that Lincoln came to dedicate in November. Now nobody knows exactly where Lincoln was standing, but at the time, just a 2-minute speech. Lincoln was not the main speaker. The main speaker was Edward Everett, the greatest speaker of his day. He memorized his 2-hour speech. Then he ever had to memorize the Gettysburg Address. That's 2 minutes long. A lot of people had trouble with that, but Edward Everett memorized his 2-hour speech. David found that. But Edward Everett saw Lincoln's speech as a great one at the time. He said so to Lincoln. He said, "You have said more in 2 minutes than I've said 2 hours." Lincoln said right back, "You could not be forgiven for giving a shorter speech, nor I a longer." Because over beyond the wall, the upright stones, that's the post-war graves. For the Civil War section beyond that, about 300 yards into the cemetery, and the gravestone lying flat along the ground in a big semicircle. But the center, that's roughly where Lincoln was standing to give his speech. There's a great story I didn't know until recently about one of our Crane Park Rangers. He was my guide supervisor when I came on 41 years ago. His name was John Andrews. John was giving a talk at the cemetery. He came out the gate, and his visitor wanted to know where Lincoln was standing to give the Gettysburg address. And the Rangers said, "We don't really know." They didn't really think to mark the spot where he stood. He said, "There's a photograph of Lincoln sitting in this ocean of people." He said, "Behind him is the gateway arch that led into the town cemetery." He said, "You can see a flagpole with the Soldiers' National Monuments at the top." So the Ranger told the visitor, by lining up those 3 key points, Lincoln was probably standing at the highest point of land, which was now the town cemetery. It's not good enough for the visitor. He wanted to know exactly where it was. The Ranger said, "You're standing exactly where Abraham Lincoln stood to give the Gettysburg address." They said, "If you don't like the truth, you get the legend." If you look good enough to the so you're going over the legend. Yes, they didn't think to mark the spot. But see, Lincoln would tell you it didn't matter where he stood. It didn't matter what Lincoln said to Lincoln. It matter what these guys did. They put their life on the line, they saved the country. And in the process, they ended slavery. That's what mattered to Lincoln. Outrageous person standing all this good speech. So, it's just funny, they didn't think to mark that famous speech when they did. Now, you know, somebody here is from Indiana. Who's that from Indiana? Tell you a good story? Oh, very good. Okay. Well, let me tell you this nice story about Indiana. Over at Culp's Hill, they have the Indiana State Monument over there. It's where the 27th Indiana made a charge against the South over near the Spangler Spring area. And they were repulsed with heavy losses. They knew the South was still there, even though they fired at the woods in the South for a couple of hours, actually several hours. They wanted to see if they were still there. And the men knew they were there. In order to charge anyway, and they charged with decimated. They lost 111 men in about 10 minutes. And they lost 8 flaggers shot as they charged over halfway and killed halfway back. One of the guys in that charge was the biggest Yankee in the war. His name was David Van Bushkirk. He was from Gosport, Indiana, and Blooming. 6 foot 10.5 inches tall. And they missed him. So one of our guys used to say, if you can't hit a guy 6 1/2 at open field, you don't deserve to win the Battle of Gettysburg. He was so impressed with the battle, he named his daughter Gettysburg. Gettysburg Van Bushkirk. And I had some people one time on a tour, they're from Gosport, they know the Van Bushkirk. They said, "Not that tall anymore." But there's a neat story that when he went off to war, he was captured earlier in the war and put in prison, Southern prison in Richmond. The Federal President Jefferson Davis came to see him. He said, "There was anybody at home as big as you are." He said, "When I left home, I had 6 sisters," which is actually true. He says, "I stood at the head of my company. They all had to come over and lean over and kiss me goodbye." In other words, he's the runt of the family. And so he had a pretty good sense of humor and all this. So they said he's the only one known to have gained weight in a Southern prison. What they want to do is to put him in this picture window while he's eating in this restaurant. People pay money to look at him. So he's the only guy known to have gained weight in a Southern prison. So after war, P.T. Barnum wanted to put him in his freak show. He wouldn't do it. So one night he did it for the South during the war. So that was different. I had to eat to stay alive. So I don't have to do this anymore. Commander Prince went back to being a farmer and a constable, I think, in Gosport, Indiana. That's really neat. He's got a picture of him with 3 of his brothers. They're all tall, but they're sitting down, so they don't realize how tall he is. But Lincoln's considered a giant. He's 6'4". He's head taller than Lincoln. But David Van Buster, interesting guy from Gosport, Indiana. But let me leave you on one last little story. I think Lincoln was always hounded by office seekers, looking for government jobs. So one time this guy at the post office died, some postal official died, and so this man come rushing up to Lincoln and said, "Can I take his place?" Lincoln thought about it a minute. He said, "Well, it's all right with me. It's all right with the undertaker." So he had a good way of dealing with people. But anyway, I hope you enjoyed that today.